Welcome students. Today we will be discussing the history and the context of Dalit movements. The word Dalit has a turbulent past. Simply a Hindi or Marathi translation of the word Dalit means depressed classes. It first into use in the 1930s. Dalit organically means oppressed or crushed. The Dalit Panthers' emergence at the start of the 1970s, however, gave the phrase a militant connotation. In their manifesto, the Panthers issued a comprehensive definition of Dalit that encompassed every oppressed class and caste, including scheduled caste as well as workers and the agricultural groups. It maintained the same militancy, revolt and refusal to accept the harsh reality of the caste system. Meaning, it might be argued that a statement highlighting the social reality that the former untouchables are downtrodden and oppressed is more persuasive than one attempting to minimize it. Due to its attempt to gloss over the deny this brutal truth, the term Harijan has been nearly universally rejected. The word scheduled caste is used in jurisprudence. It is neutral as a result that might be acceptable and in some instances even better for books. However, the cold and bureaucratic scheduled caste vocabulary cannot give those who experience the realities of caste discrimination a more assertive and more aggressive identification necessary for movements and action. On the other hand, the word Dalit, with its associations with resistance and revolution, provides this, which is why the Panthers choose to go with it as a purveyor of their collective identity. Jyotirao Phule, a Maharashtrian reformer, coined the term Dalit first. According to academic scholar Gail Omvet in her blog Seeking B. Gumbura, it was used at the time as a Hindi Marathi translation for depressed classes. In this session, we will be discussing at history of Dalit movements in pre-independent India, Ambedkarite movements, Gandhian contribution, Dalit Panthers movement, and we will be discussing Kansi Ram's and Mayawati's contribution to Dalit movements. In India, Dalits, formerly called by numerous labels, have fought for justice and equality throughout history and have organized a variety of movements in various regions of the nation. Some of these movements have made some progress towards their objective, but the majority have failed miserably for a variety of reasons, including the Hindu society's rigid structure, which is praised in religious texts, the economic vulnerability of the movement's participants, the movement's lack of sustainability as a result of this, the movement's lack assertive leadership, and so on. History demonstrates the existence of social divisions between caste, class, gender and other categories in Indian society. Such divisions have altered the entire social structure of Indian society, pushing the oppressed group, whether Dalits, Adivasis or women, systematically to the margins of society through the ancient Brahminical system of oppression. Dalits are people who have been historically exploited economically, socially and politically. Due to their inability to function in the Hindu society, they lived outside the village and were considered untouchable. In India, before independence, the Dalits, who are considered as ex-untouchables, who have been mercilessly oppressed by the so referred to upper caste, fall beyond the purview of the Varnashram Dharma doctrine. Although India won freedom, the Dalits were not given the opportunity to live with equality and dignity. As a response to long-standing injustices done against them, the Dalit movement in India was started as a result of this principle of equality. A movement known as the Dalit movement aims to challenge the socio-cultural predominance of the higher castes. It is a mass movement that cries out for justice through speeches, books, plays, songs, cultural institutions, and any other means at its disposal. The Dalit movement fights for the Dalits' privileges and rights. The Dalit movement, according to Ruman Sutradhar, is a social revolution aiming at bringing about social change that has replaced the long-standing Dalit movements in India's stratified system and is rooted in democratic principles of liberty, equality and social equity. He also demonstrates how Dalits were able to overcome such ingrained preconceptions due to decades of socio-cultural marginalization, economic hardship and political exploitation. As a result, they started to protest using literature or by creating groups like Dalit Panthers. This protest movement later became known as Dalit movement. Different Dalit leaders have inspired and rallied the Dalit public to achieve the overarching goals of establishing an egalitarian environment through their organizations and political parties. The push for retaining or increasing reservations in political posts, government jobs and welfare programs was sparked by the Dalit leaders. The new Dalit political movements are what they are known as. The Dalit movement changed Indian society's caste system and strongly emphasized the struggle for personal dignity. The Dalit movement has resulted in the current reservation system, Dalit movement in pre-independent India. The Bhakti movement in the 15th century was a well-received movement that gave equal treatment to all social classes and gave rise to the Saguna and Nirguna traditions. The first one held to the Vaishnavites or Shaivat tradition and worshipped God in the avatar or Vishnu or Shiva. Despite adhering to Varnashram Dharma and the caste social structure, it promoted equality for all castes. The formless, all-powerful God was that Nirguna's adherents believed in. The principal representatives of this tradition were Ravidas and Kabir. In the early 20th century, Dalits in metropolitan areas started to use it more frequently since it offered everyone the chance to find redemption. It made a social equality commitment. According to Fuller, these initiatives led to a widespread reinterpretation of the devotionalist ethic as an egalitarian tenet. Without a doubt, the scheduled castes were inspired and encouraged to join the Dalit struggle by the teachings of Bhakti movement. These gave future Dalit generations the tool to resist traditional Hinduism. Hindu religious and social reformers were the ones who started the Neo-Vedantic groups. By integrating the Dalits into the caste structure, these groups aimed to end untouchability. Caste discrimination was not a fundamental component of Hinduism or social stratification according to the movement's founders. The Arya Samaj's founder Dayanand Saraswati held that caste was a political construct put in place by the ruling class for the common good of society and not a natural or religious distinction. In several regions of the country, the Neo-Vedantic and non-Brahminic movements were significant catalysts for the growth of anti-caste and anti-Hindu Dalit groups. Important anti-untouchability movements that were started in the last quarter of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century include the Satya Sodak Samaj and the self-respect movements in Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, and Adi Dharma and Adi Andhra movement in Bengal and Adi Hindu movement in Uttar Pradesh. You might remember some of these movements from the previous model, and it is pertinent to know that these belong to Neo-Vedantic movements. The movement did not directly threaten the caste system. In essence, it was intended as and remained a protest against the allocation of low positions and functions to the untouchable by the way a claim not to be Aryan Hindus. It was not developed into a full-blown direct attack on caste system. To free non-Brahmins from the shackles of Brahmanism, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule formed the Satyasodak Mandal in 1873. In 1912, Shahu Maharaj of Kolhapur started the Satyasodak Mandal and continued the work that Phule had started. The Dalit movements during the time before independence included a powerful anti-Brahmanism, Neo-Brahman movement in Maharashtra, the Adi Dravidas movement in Tamil Nadu, the Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalan movement in Kerala, the Adi Andhras movement in coastal Andhra and others. Phule made an effort to create a brand new theistic religion. According to M.N. Srinivas, Sanskritization is the process by which a low or medium Hindu caste or tribal or other groups alters its customs, ceremonial beliefs and manner of life toward a high and frequently twice born caste. According to Kumar, Dalit leaders used the process of Sanskritization to advance themselves up the caste system. They followed Brahman customs such as becoming vegetarians, applying sandalwood paste on their foreheads, donning sacred thread, etc. As a result, Dalit leaders such as Moon Vidhoba Raoji Pandey of Maharashtra, Mudals Vaishya of Gujarat, Swami Tyagad of Kerala and Pandit Sundar Lal Sagar of Uttar Pradesh attempted to follow the established cultural norms and practices of the higher castes. Dalits' imitation of high caste behavior was a declaration of their equality, which became the primary theme of Sanskritization. According to Sringasgara, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar appeared to have long before explained the phenomena of Sanskritization by the term mimicry in the context of the creation of castes. He had explicitly said that practically all of the castes in the pre-caste society imitated particular Brahminic manners and practices in an effort to elevate their social standing and set themselves apart from other groups. The castes were created as a result of this process. According to him, the rules of imitation apply from higher to lower. To end their untouchability and improve their moral and material circumstances, Dalits also choose the conversion route. Particularly in Kerala, a sizable number of Dalits were converted to Christianity. Some Dalits, particularly in Punjab, adopted Sikhism. They are known as Mahabis, Namdaris, Kabir Panthis, etc. Ambedkarite movement. Everyone is aware that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, also known as Baba Saheb Ambedkar, was one of the designers of the Indian Constitution. In addition to being a renowned political figure, he was also a distinguished jurist, Buddhist activist, philosopher, anthropologist, historian, orator, writer, economist, scholar and editor. Throughout his lifetime, Dr. Ambedkar worked to remove societal ills like caste discrimination and for the rights of Dalits and other socially disadvantaged communities. Jawaharlal Nehru's cabinet chose Dr. Ambedkar as India's first Minister of Law. In 1990, he received the Bharat Ratna, the highest civilian honor in India, posthumously. While this provides a general outline of Dr. Ambedkar as a person, let us look into the Dalit movements he was involved in. Ambedkar tried to organize Dalits in order to combat socio-economic issues politically. In 1936, Dr. Ambedkar founded the Independent Labour Party. He attempted to end the exploitative Khoti and Veti systems that were in the place in the Konkan region of Maharashtra, a wage-free hereditary service to the caste Hindus in the local administration. He made an effort to persuade the government to enlist the Mahars. The first Mahar regiment was established in 1941. The Government of India Act 1919 gave the depressed class one seat in the Central Legislative Assembly in response to Dr. Ambedkar's demand for adequate representation for Dalits in the legislatures. In April 1927, Ambedkar launched a Marathi fortnightly called Bahishkrit Bharat, and in November 1930 he launched a weekly called Janata. He founded the Samaj Sangh in September 1927 to promote social equality for Hindu castes and the untouchables. He was in favor of intercaste relationship and intercaste marriage. In March 1929, he also released the Samata, another paper. He led a satyagraha in December 1927 to secure the untouchables' civic rights to obtain water from the communal tank Chavadar Thalain in Kolabas Mahat district. Hindus claimed ownership of the tank and a protracted legal battle ensued. In March 1937, Ambedkar prevailed in the Bombay High Court. In accordance with the Pune Pact of September 1932, seats were designated aside for the economically disadvantaged sections. In order to guarantee the rights of the untouchables to access to renowned Kalagram temple in Nasik, Ambedkar carried out a further satyagraha in March 1930. In 1934, the satyagraha was dismantled. He expanded his operations from April 1942 to 1946 and founded the Scheduled Castes Federation as an all-Indian political party. He utilized the position as a Governor General's Executive Council member from 1942 to 46 to further scheduled castes and scheduled tribes interest. He obtained funding from the federal government for their schooling as well as reservations for them in positions within the federal and provincial government. As we have already seen, Ambedkar accepted an invitation to become the country's first law minister after independence. He was chosen on August 29 to serve as chairman of Constitution Drafting Committee, which the Assembly had established to draft a new constitution for India. Ambedkar's draft of the constitution guaranteed and protected a wide variety of individuals' civil liberty, including freedom of religion, the elimination of untouchability, and the prohibition of all types of discrimination. He obtained the Assembly's approval for the introduction of a system of job reservation for the members of SCs and STs in the government services, schools and universities by arguing for comprehensive economic and social rights for women. It is imperative that as a learner, one regards Ambedkar in high esteem not because of his birth or identity, but because of how he stands tall as a societal figure through his education and perseverance, something on which all Dalit movements are based. Now we can see Gandhian contribution to Dalits. Mahatma Gandhi became acutely aware of the problem of social discrimination while he was in South Africa. Gandhiji believed that building the nation's life was of the utmost significance. He had always viewed untouchability as a degrading institution. The encounter he had with the Harijans in Ahmedabad led him to conclude that this is a movement for cleansing of Hinduism. Gandhi said, "If we are all the children of same God, how can there be any distinction between us?" He emphasized the need to address the core cause of untouchability problem. When Gandhiji was imprisoned in 1932, he founded the Harijan Seva Sangh to help forward the cause of Harijan's uplift. This group did not belong to Congress. It resulted from the fast Gandhiji kept in 1932 while he was incarcerated. Despite having excellent intentions, Gandhi's version of Dalit emancipation left many unwritten lines. Even his idea of referring to Dalits as Harijans did not pick up as he would have expected, because it still held an association with religious connotation in its etymology. He had a contentious relationship with Ambedkar, who is revered in India as the savior of the underprivileged and untouchable community. He and Gandhi disagreed on numerous occasions while serving India in various capacities, but the Dalit issue is perhaps the most well known. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar wanted to develop an alternative political ideology in response to Gandhi's nationalist movements, support of caste and untouchability. The Hinduized nationalist movement's very base was tested by this, which was totally different. Gandhi, in his opinion and his philosophy, were paradoxically, because while advocating for independence from foreign rule, they also sought to preserve the social order that allowed one class to rule another on an enduring basis through hereditary succession. Ambedkar presumptively believed that Gandhi's devotion to Hinduism supported untouchability, since it is related to and supported by Hinduism. But the Mahatma genuinely held the contrary belief to this presumption. The treatment of the nation's destitute and unremarked scavengers as worse than dogs to be hated is neither noble nor heroic in his opinion. Untouchability is not the attention of religion, it is a technique of Satan. Therefore, one could argue that Gandhi-Ambedkar argument is both theoretically novel and politically essential to comprehend the most combustible period of Indian nationalism, which occurred when the Mahatma was no longer the unquestioned leader of independent struggle. Now we can see the work of Dalit Panthers movement. The Dalit Panthers movement was neo-socialist and adapted Ambedkar's philosophy as its guiding principle. A social group called Dalit Panthers worked to end caste prejudice. It was established on May 29, 1972 in the Indian state of Maharashtra by Namdeo Dasal and J.B. Pawar. The Black Panther Party, a socialist movement that fought against racial discrimination against African Americans during the American Civil Rights Movement in the middle of 20th century, served as an inspiration for the Dalit Panthers. Namdeo Dasal, J.V. Pawar and Arun Kamble took the initiative to create the Dalit Panther movement in Bombay. Due to its original emphasis on militancy and revolutionary ideals, the Dalit Panther movement represented a significant divergence from previous Dalit movements. The majority were young men, many of whom practiced Neo-Buddhism. They promoted and engaged in radical politics that combined the ideals of Karl Marx, Jyotirao Phule and Ambedkar. The Dalit Panthers had a significant role in revitalizing the use of the term Dalit to describe lower caste populations. According to Kumar, the Dalit Panther movement represented a fundamental shift from past Dalit movements. The Dalit movement's original emphasis on militancy through crude weapons and threats gave it a revolutionary hue. According to their manifesto, the Dalit Panthers had revolutionized the political landscape for the Dalit struggle. Dalits were given the proletarian radical class identity, and their struggle were connected to those of all oppressed people worldwide. Marxism offered a rational foundation for enacting a revolutionary shift. Both Dalits and non-Dalits have not yearned for a fundamental shift. Still, the former adhered to what appeared to be Ambedkarian method of socio-political change. At the same time, the latter favored what eventually became the Marxian method which tend to see every social process as a reflection of the material world. Kanshiram's and Mayawati's contribution to Dalit movement will be discussed now. On the day of B.R. Ambedkar's birth, Kanshiram founded the Bahujan Samaj organization, a well-known national political party in the Indian state that stands for Bahujans, which literally means people in minority. It includes religious minorities as well as members of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and other backward castes. The ideology of Gautam Buddha, B.R. Ambedkar, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Narayana Guru, Periyar E.V. Ramasamy and Chhatrapati Shahuji Maharaj serves as inspiration for the cadres. The social transformation and economic emancipation of the Bahujan Samaj is the main objective of BSP, with the elevation of oppressed people being its main focus. Kanshiram founded the Backward and Minority Communities Employee Federation in 1973. Educate, organize and agitate is the association's motto. Kanshiram persisted in expanding his network and educating people about the Ambedkar teachings as well as the realities of the caste system in India. He staged the Ambedkar Mela road performance in 1980 to depict Ambedkar's life and philosophy through images and narrations. He established the Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Swamiti in 1981. Mayawati Prabhu Das served as Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister for 4 distinct terms. She serves as the Bahujan Samaj Party's national president. She focused on a platform of social change to better the lives of Bahujans or scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, other backward classes and religious minorities, the weakest segment of Indian society. P.V. Narasimha Rao, a former Indian Prime Minister, referred to Mayawati's government as a miracle of democracy. Taking after Kanshiram and Ambedkar's ideologies, Mayawati has put forth the themes they wanted to take forward with streamlined progress. She has been working non-stop to alter government legislation to accommodate Dalits and encourage their presence and upliftment. Mayawati's lasting contribution to Indian politics is the emancipation of Dalits. Even Ambedkar or Kanshiram could never offer the community a sense of self-confidence that she has given to them. To summarize, the 19th century saw the beginning of contemporary Dalit movement as the Dalits started to take their objectives seriously and put some risk in their lives. Most sources regarding the background and early history of the movement were produced by non-Dalits who developed a interest in them rather than the Dalits themselves. It is vital to understand their sources in order to appreciate their potential and limitations fully. The history of Dalit movements in pre-independent India, Ambedkarite movement, Gandhian contribution, Dalit Panthers movement and the contributions of Kanshiram and Mayawati were all discussed briefly to facilitate a fundamental understanding of the sociological scenario of the same. This equality principle led to the beginning of Dalit movement in India as a response to the persistent injustice committed against them. The higher caste socio-cultural dominance is being contested by a movement known as the Dalit movement. It is a widespread movement that demands justice through writings, dramas, music, educational establishments and other mediums. It is something that we can observe even today as these institutions aim to remove the still persists undeniable in many societal settings. Thank you.